This video is kindly sponsored by Project Red. Check the link in the description to find out more. This video is made possible by 3D Musketeers, offering full-service product development, prototyping, and production, helping you make awesome from art to part. Links in the description.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Meet a Maker. Hi Faye, how you doing?
Hello, my lovely Billy. How are you?
Hello. Good. And very excited because today we are meeting Lenore. Hello, Lenore. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, you do such amazing things in the plotter world and in other worlds. And yes, tell us about yourself.
You got to tell us. You got to tell everyone. Tell us who are you?
Who are you? What are you known for?
I'm Lenore. I am half of Evil Mad Scientist Laboratories. We started as a project blog back in 2006, and then started a company in 2007 selling primarily soldering kits. And then gradually added more different types of products, other kinds of kits and decorative things, and mechanical computers and plotters. So one of the main things that we make now and are well known for are pen plotters. AxiDraw is the most popular of the ones that we make.
Very, very awesome pen plotters.
They're so amazing. Cool too. The AxiDraws are so awesome. I've coveted that. Like I every so often just have a bout of just kind of like looking at them somewhat dreamily and be like, yeah, the things I could do with that. I mean, I don't have the space or the money, but you know, the things that I could do. They're very, very cool.
They're beautiful.
But also, Mazel Tov, nearly 15 years. You've been doing this for a while.
Doing this for a while now. I can't believe how long it's been. So I know both of you do like 3D printing and stuff. And back when we started out going to the very first of the maker fairs, which of course aren't happening these days, but
one day they will be back.
At the second maker fair, we brought a 3D printer that we had made, and there were a grand total of 3 functional 3D printers at Maker Faire. There was a Stratasys 3D printer, I believe.
Okay.
And there was our Candy Fab, and the Fab at Home people had brought theirs. They were extruding icing. They were making sugar icing things.
Yeah.
I talked about this.
And then there was somebody who had like an XY stage with a hot glue gun or something like that. And so that was the state of hobby 3D printing back in 2007.
I mean, that is basically what 3D printing is a hot glue gun on rails with motors and not glue. Like that is basically what it is.
So yes and no. Our 3D printer was not an extrusion printer. We were doing sintering. We had been inspired by Bathsheba Grossman, and I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she is a 3D sculptor who primarily works. At the time, most of her works were printed in the metal printers, the sintered metal. So incredible mathematical sculptures. So we saw her at the first Maker Faire and we're like, whoa, 3D printers are really cool. So we made ours to print in granulated sugar. So we had a bed of sugar and basically a hot air gun. It was actually a solder rework hot air gun that would fuse the pixels together. Or voxels, I guess,
God.
right?
Hence Candy Fab. Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
Yeah, that would make sense now.
That is so cool.
Okay, so then you would lower the bed, add another layer of sugar, and fuse the next layer on top, and the layers would fuse up. So it was not the standard extrusion models that are so common today. There are other kinds of powder printers that are common, but they're not common for hobbyists because they tend to have more upkeep and they tend to be messy and
expensive.
Candy Fab was not. So Candy Fab was made out of old pen plotters.
Oh, love it. Love
Things
it.
that have great motion control systems. You know, the shafts and the bushings and everything are really great. So we took these old pen plotters and fixed them together so that they could move the nozzle across the bed.
Out with the biro, in with the heat pen. Done.
Yep.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh my God.
But, okay, so one of the reasons that I'm here today is because, Billy, you mentioned that one of the things you do outside of, like, 3D printing is sewing. And so one of the challenges of a powder printer is that you have to have a container for your material, for your media. So I sewed the bed liner out of duck cloth, out of canvas. And it was telescoping, so it had stiffeners in the lining of the bed so that it folded up like an accordion along the walls.
Wow.
And then it would gradually
nice.
unfold as you lowered the bed. And so...
very good.
So then it also connected to drainage tubes outside of the main bed so that when you scrape off the extra sugar at the end, when you bring the object back up out, you have a place for the sugar to go. So we'd have buckets underneath the printer to collect the sugar that came off, and we could reuse that for future prints.
Amazing.
God, I want to see this now.
Sewing into 3D printing. I love it so much.
Yeah, sewing is such a useful skill to have, and I think it's honestly a little underrated in the making community, possibly because it's maybe seen as a more kind of like feminine craft, but it is such a useful skill to have in your arsenal. Like my sewing machine's just chilling right there, so like
yeah,
I'm here with you.
It's one of those crafts that are processes that requires practice. I mean, all of them do, right? Whether you're doing 3D modeling or whether you're doing sewing, it's one of those that you benefit from regular repeated and hours of practice. And so it's often, I think, neglected because a lot of people try it one time and they're like, oh, that's hard. And then they don't try it again, not knowing that it does get easier and you get better understanding of the materials that you're working with.
Yeah, and you pick up little tricks along the way that makes it easier and you learn the process.
Yes.
I think sewing taught me that the process is really important and thinking about what you need to do in future to that thing before you
the order in which you do things matters.
Yeah, because it's
you
so
can't
important
do
in
things
sewing.
out of order,
Yeah.
because then it just doesn't work. Speaking as somebody who frequently forgets the order when sewing, and it's just like, oh, I can't actually sew this bit now because I sewed this other bit, and now I can't actually access. Okay, this is what my seam ripper is for, you know? Like, it gets lots of work.
I'm such good friends with my seam ripper.
Me too.
I love my seam ripper. It is
the most
such
important
a good tool.
Yeah.
The most important tool. Also, though I feel bad. I feel like I yell at it a lot.
Oh, sorry. It's forgiving.
I get mad at it.
What were you saying, Lenore? Sorry.
I used my seam ripper yesterday. I needed to take a hook and eye out of a dress that had gotten broken, so I was like, "Yeah, use my seam ripper."
It's just so perfect.
See, that was something you did, so it's
spots
okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love it. I love the sewing influencing 3D printing. It throws me back to like jacquard looms and early computers. You know how they were programmed with all the like. It wasn't really a reel in the jacquard loom. It was pieces of wood, but it was still that through hole kind of programming for looms and making pretty fabrics. And then that was used in early computers. And it's
computerized embroidery.
For a long time, the punch card style programming was used in knitting machines in the 1980s. So Brother made a line of knitting machines that were, they had a variety of different interfaces, including punch card, mylar film.
That's awesome.
There was one that plugged into your TV and you could select pixels. And it was really, really hard to use, like really hard to use.
The potential was there, though.
So my friend brought one to the Vintage Computer Festival with that hooked up so that you could try it out and see how difficult it was. It was amazing. So I bring that up because that's another project that we worked on, which was to create an Arduino-compatible interface for these vintage knitting machines so that people could connect them to their computer now so they are still useful. So these knitting machines just don't wear out. they're built like tanks, and so everybody still has one, and everybody who had a grandma who had one, they have their grandmas, and so they're relatively maintainable, and a lot of people have wanted to make them useful again, and so there was a project to do this Arduino interface. So we worked with that project for a while and helped them by manufacturing a board. We're not active in the project now, but people are still doing that.
What is that project called? I have a knitting machine, and I've been like, wouldn't it be neat if this was computerized? So like, you've just blown my mind. Oh my god.
So it's called AYAB, which stands for All Yarns Are Beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
Isn't that great?
That's gorgeous.
So
yes.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to check this out. That is so exciting. I have, one of those big tanky ones, which I got in an op shop once. An op shop is like a thrift store, sorry. Weird words for things. And then I had to lug it back on the bus, and you're not kidding.
Gosh, they weigh
you're
a
not
ton.
kidding about the built like a tank thing, literally a ton. Like, my arms were sore for days from lugging this.
It looks like you're carrying a gun case or something, but it weighs so much more than like a musical instrument or something that would come in a case like that. But they're so heavy.
It must have been a cast iron or something. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's something actually really, really incredible, and I think personally very important to this kind of work, to this kind of project, because so much of these kind of old styles of doing things that use these big, beautiful, like will last forever machines, they will die out if we don't adapt them, if we don't make them. If we don't do things to them to make them usable again. I watched a beautiful little video about like one of the last remaining old style printing presses in like either the US or the world. I can't remember. And it was going on at length about how like these are things that it's just, they're not being adapted. They're not, or rather they've been adapted and there's new printing presses. And so these old machines and these old beautiful processes are just kind of going to disappear. And it made me start thinking about it, kind of all of the kind of machines like these looms, stuff like that could, if not adapted, just kind of stop being used and eventually disappear, and the skills will disappear, or they'll change so much as to be unrecognizable from what they originally were. So what you've done is a mitzvah. Like what you've done is a genuinely like kind of profoundly good thing, because you're helping to not just bring back use to these machines, but to keep something alive that could otherwise disappear from the world. So like, that's amazing. That's so
working
amazing.
With that project was so rewarding for that reason. It was very challenging for us because we are used to working with makers who are coming from an electronics background and want to learn about LEDs and resistor values and microcontrollers, or maybe that in the pen plotter world they're working with SVGs and design. So suddenly we're working with people who have vintage machines of unknown, maintenance, people who may not have ever heard the word Arduino before, and a group of people who are working on this amazing project, but have, basically alpha software. And so you're trying to make it so that these people who have the knitting machine can get up to speed to the point where they can make it work with the software, which you're trying to get up to speed to make it work on a regular basis, and you're trying to get the hardware. It was a huge challenge because of all of those things. But the project still goes on, and there are other people producing the boards now, which is great.
That's cool. Really fantastic.
That's so cool.
Honestly, so much respect, so much incredible respect for doing that sort of thing, because I think these things are going to become really, really important to do in the next 15, 20, 30 years as everything becomes a digital version of itself, and all of these old machine tools.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like going to the Vintage Computer Festival because you have these people who care deeply about this one particular machine from, 1965 or 1982 or whatever, and you'll see how they have lovingly restored it, how, what kinds of janky tool chains they have to use to get new software onto it, what new software they've written for it. It's just amazing to see them keep these old things alive and the different kinds of skills that it takes to do that. It's been really fun.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh,
that's really awesome.
I don't know whether we have any festivals like that here, but I've been blessed to be part of the Cyberdeck community, and there's a big overlap between Cyberdecks and like retro computers and stuff. And yeah, just seeing, like you said, how lovingly, like the loving attachment people have to these old worlds and old styles of doing stuff is just, it's so heartwarming, and I love it all the time, and learning all these interesting things about how we used to do stuff when things were really limited.
Yeah.
Like, that is fascinating.
It really is.
The ingenuity that got us to today is just, it blows my mind.
Yeah, that's really isn't it?
One of the projects that we're working on is called the Monster 6502. I don't know if you've heard of this one. So this is in collaboration with our friend Eric, who is Tube Time on Twitter, and he does a lot of retro computing stuff. It is a recreation of the MOS 6502 chip, but out of individual transistors on a PCB instead of looking at the silicon die. And for each of the registers, we've added LEDs so that you can actually see the program running the registers.
Nice.
That is so cool.
And
yay for visuals.
So the 6502 is still used in computing education because it is a small enough chip that you can wrap your head around it if you're learning assembly code, so having it actually running code in front of you that you can see running is just kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still actively used in education because it's constrained enough that you can understand the whole thing at once. You can look at the whole thing and understand what's going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That makes
I love
sense.
that. What a good idea to put LEDs on it too, like so you can watch it think. That's just
it's gorgeous.
Genius. Yeah. Oh, I love
that
it.
That would be so useful. Like, I'm just kind of sat here thinking to myself how that would be so useful to someone like me who's like really a really visual person. Yeah, like
so
being able to be like, okay,
things
about it
things,
is, you know.
you have to slow it down far enough that you can see it
that
at
makes
a
sense.
Human scale.
Yeah,
and we can actually slow it down and step it through command by command. That it's
that's super
that
cool.
You can do one at a time and see what's happening.
Yeah.
This makes it kind of incompatible with the computers of the era that ran that chip because none of them. So all of them were optimized to go as fast as they could, right? Because that's what she wanted at the time.
That's
so
forever the goal.
None of them can work with a slow chip,
right?
Or very few.
Fair.
So we've been finding a few of the old computers that may be able to run it with a little bit of modification. But basically, we've built our own computer to run it.
I love it. What a beautiful thing!
Mind blown.
Such a cool idea.
Just the idea of building computers is mind blown for me. So, hopefully not for long, but for now, it still blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm still like circuits. Like I'm still day one.
Okay, so one of our projects before this was the Digi-Comp 2. Which is a mechanical computer from the 1960s that we did a recreation of. And the original version was made out of vacuum-formed plastic. And it had marbles that would roll down and switch flip-flops, which would have a number on them, a 0 or a 1, and it would point a direction, or not, depending on what it was doing.
That is the coolest.
So this original one came out right at the time that people were starting to get access to mainframes. and they were starting to get access to actual computers, and it was expensive. It was like $100 then. So because it's this big piece of plastic that you hold up at an angle to roll the balls down, the marbles down. So it did not sell well in the market at all. But we were like, rolling ball computer? That is so cool. Yes! The other reason it didn't sell well is that it didn't look well. It was basically, the material was like drink cup lid plastic, you know, that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Oh, that's super thin plastic. So it'd be like,
right. And so it, even though it was on a rigid board, the marbles would go not quite.
It was
the
imprecise.
Right friction, and so you get to the end of your calculation would be wrong. You know, you'd multiply 3 by 5, and you'd be like, this doesn't make any sense. Why does it say 14? You know,
you're like, I know this isn't the right answer. So something's wrong here.
Which is just the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So we made it out of CNC carved plywood and used Pachinko balls.
Yes.
So the heavier balls worked better with the switches. We could have deep channels in the plywood so the balls couldn't get off track. And then the only times that it had problems was because we programmed it wrong, right? That we put a switch in the wrong direction.
Human error? Say, though, that's a thing?
Garbage in, garbage out. The first one that we made was for Maker Faire, and we made it billiard ball scale. It was like 8-10 feet long and 6 feet wide, or maybe 5 feet wide. And
good exercise.
And so these billiard balls would roll down it going ka-chunk, ka-chunk, and flipping the switches.
Oh my
that was
God.
Great.
That's
so
amazing.
Loud.
I love that.
It was loud. It was loud. It was very fun.
But I love it. Oh my God. I wish I could have seen that.
On Pachinko. What's Pachinko? Sorry. Maybe we
you
call
don't
it
know
something different here. Or
Pachinko
maybe I just
is like Japanese casino. So they're these
tiny ball
machines
bearings.
that have, and it's not gambling technically, but what you do is you go in and you play the games and you get the prizes and then you exchange those for money. So it's gambling.
It's loophole gambling. Which
loophole
is,
gambling.
You know, totally fine and legal.
Yeah. Playing a lot of Nintendo games, there's a lot of like gambling games, and I'm like, this is interesting. Like from a cultural perspective, I'm like, okay, it'll make sense now. It's not really gambling.
Oh, yeah.
Pachinko.
No, Pachinko
okay,
is massive, and there are these parlors just full of these machines, and they are the noisiest thing
like
you can imagine.
Vegas. It's like slot machines.
Okay,
but all
now
these
they all have video
bearing.
backgrounds, and like they're crazy.
Gotcha.
The one that I got at the electronics flea market locally, and it's a vintage one from 60s or 70s, and so it does have some bells and some lights, but that's about it as far as the interactivity. But they just fall down, the little pins stick out of the background.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm imagining sort of like ping pong ball kind of vibe. Like, not ping pong. What am I thinking? The arcade. What is this called? Oh my God!
Pinball.
Pinball, yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
like,
but those are massive balls. Those are
so
like
these are littler.
good, like
these are littler. Okay,
oh, they're smaller.
All right.
Okay.
No,
yeah,
Pachinko. No, sorry, Pachinko littler.
Yeah.
Then yes.
Pachinko are tiny. I would say they're
about
barely half a
bit
centimeter.
They're less than less than a quarter inch, because the quarter-inch ball bearings don't. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're tiny.
Okay. Cool.
They're very tiny. They're not like pinball balls.
Okay.
Pinball balls are massive.
I'm on the right page now. Thank you.
Honestly,
Thank you
there's a really awesome YouTube video about Pachinko that I can send you later, Billy, that I think is just such a fantastic look at it, because it is quite wild and interesting to look into. And I had to double check, and I'm still not 100% certain, but I'm pretty certain that the name is based on the sound that the balls make as they bounce around.
That makes
Pachinko.
sense.
Like it doesn't have like a I'm pretty certain it's just based off the sound.
Onomatopoetic.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. Again, if somebody watching this wants to correct me, you're very welcome to do so. Honestly, if I rewatch that Abroad in Japan video, I'll probably get my answer, but I don't remember everything I've watched in great detail, so. But yes,
we'll pop the link
Pachinko
in the description, because that sounds awesome.
Pachinko balls are perfect. Because yeah, you're right. They're heavy, but they're small. So like they'll stay in a channel, but they'll not take a lot of space.
Size.
Yes. Yes.
Important.
And that, yeah, that
and
makes them perfect.
You can get used pachinko balls online, and they'll come with the names of the pachinko parlors stamped on them. They're really great.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is so cool. Have you got video of these machines running online? Like,
I'd love to see that.
I'll get you links.
Yes, please, because that's awesome. Yes. Oh, cool. Oh, I'd love to.
And there is one. There's one at the museum, the computer museum in Seattle. I can't remember the name of it. They have one of ours on display. And then we have one of the large billiard ball scale ones on display at MIT in the computer science building. And so people can go use it there.
That's awesome.
That is so
I think there may be a
cool.
few other museums that have them as well. But we've got a few out there that people can actually seek out.
That is so cool. And Seattle's one of the places that I would definitely be going when I go to America, because I have a bunch of friends there. So I'm definitely going to check that out. That is so cool.
What's amazing, that I built a computer that's on display at MIT.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Also,
I mean,
you have stuff in museums. Like,
I know.
You gotta usually be dead for that. Like, you usually gotta do a thing and then die.
It gets better.
And then it gets in a museum.
So there was one time when I had to do a CV for an application for something, and I don't remember what it was, and I was like, I have a bachelor's degree. What is my CV even going to look like? I'm like, okay,
MIT.
What kind of genres of professional documentation applies to what I'm doing? And I realized that many artists will do things like have an exhibition list and a publication list. I'm like, so I started looking at that, and I started doing an exhibition list, and it's crazy, like the places that my stuff has been, but the best. So one of our products is the Eggbot.
Yes,
I don't know if you guys have seen this one.
I have.
So
I
haven't seen the Eggbot.
It's amazing.
It's a pen plotter that draws on spherical and egg-shaped things. So it'll draw on Christmas baubles, and ping pong
Easter
balls,
eggs.
and Easter eggs, and all kinds of things. Okay, the Eggbot went on display at the V&A during one of their craft exhibitions. I know, right?
When was this?
I love the V&A.
Gosh.
Oh my god.
When was this?
You are
so
officially my god, Lenore.
The Eggbot came out in 2010, so I'm going to guess it was only a couple years after that. I'll look it up for you.
I could have seen it then. I could have seen it because I lived here then.
Yeah, I love the V&A.
I love
the V&A is amazing. It's one of my favorite museums. In fact, actually, one of maybe 3 things I have actually done since the start of this pandemic has been to go to the V&A, because they've been actually they've been really, really good. Like when things were not so bad, like when we had that summertime lull, they reopened, and they were basically you had to get in touch and book a time, so that it was highly limited numbers, and you had to wear a mask. And they obviously are going to have top of the line HVAC in a place like that because it's full of priceless artifacts. So I was like, you know what? This is probably the safest place that I can be indoors, like anywhere in this city. And I wanted to see the kimono exhibit before it left. And so it was one of those, like, I have to go now or I will miss it. So the V&A is literally one of 3 places I've been since March of last year. Not to see the Eggbot, sadly, but I love the V&A. So the fact that you had worked in the V&A is pretty much the most incredible thing ever.
I am actually so excited. I'm actually welling up with little tears because oh my god, that is the coolest thing ever.
It's gold.
And for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, the Victoria and Albert Museum is in the UK, and it exhibits beautiful objects. Beautiful objects.
So not just beautiful objects. It's like one of everything. It's the craft museum, right?
It's a design museum.
All of the glassware and all of the ceramicware and all of the textiles and all of so it's just this massive inundation of
frequently has fashion exhibits and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
trades and just
it's also an astoundingly beautiful building.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite things about the museums in London, is that all of the buildings that they're in are old and absolutely beyond gorgeous. Like, they're basically palaces. They're basically palaces that have cool shit in them. Like, they're amazing. So
like the Natural History Museum is like
building.
cathedral of
it is
natural
an
history,
actual
like,
cathedral, pretty much.
Yeah, and it has like animals all up the sides of the columns, and like, it is. If you're ever in the UK, do at least the Natural History and the V&A, because they are just,
which is good because they're right next to each other. So like, you can literally go to one and then walk across the street and go to the other. So yes, no, very much top tip for visiting London. Go to the Natural History Museum and go to the V&A. But the fact that you had the Eggbot in the V&A, I'm just sad that like I can't go back in time and go, because I could have actually seen it. Like, I could have actually gone. I lived here.
Maybe we
I
can
moved here in
convince them to
2010,
do
so,
like
like,
a maker exhibit, like a modern maker exhibit. Maybe we can convince them.
I mean, so that's what it was there for, was modern crafts,
so
and it's probably time for a refresh on that, since it's been like 10 years since.
Yep. Come on, V&A.
I'd say so. We can get Eggbot out again, and we can have awesome plotters, and we can do this
again.
Now
this time we'll take AxiDraw this time.
Yes, AxiDraw, definitely. We need to modernize.
Although I'll say AxiDraw has had a lot of output in museums and art galleries as well, not necessarily from us, but the users of AxiDraw have do such incredible artwork that they'll often be doing shows at galleries that it's just amazing to see what a tool that I make enables to go out into the world.
I was gonna
I actually just realized that when you initially were talking about AxiDraw, in my head, you were just you were just reselling them. It didn't occur to me that you made them. And now I'm like,
of course.
Like, I'm just over here having a galaxy brain moment. Like, all right.
So let's back up a little bit.
Oh my god.
So, we were going to the early maker fairs and meeting a lot of the Bay Area makers and the people who would come to Maker Fair for the event. And one of the people that we met was Bruce Shapiro, who was the original inventor of the Eggbot. And he had seen our kits, our soldering kits and things, and liked the way that we did documentation, and approached us and asked us if we wanted to collaborate on Eggbot. He had done some kits, but didn't want to be a kit producer.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a thing for everyone. Anyway, so that's kind of how we got into working with Eggbot. After Eggbot, we were approached by a young friend who wanted to participate in a robotics competition in the art category, and so we helped him make it was called the Watercolor Bot. So it's a pen plotter that dips a brush in water and watercolors and does painting. And so I think he took second place at the competition. There was a college student group that had a really interesting machine that in that category took first place. But he was 12 at that time. So it was great.
Okay, yeah.
Wow, that is so...
Damn.
Oh, these are such great stories. I'm so happy.
So I don't know that he's necessarily part of the maker community as much anymore. He's doing more art on his own, but he's still in art, and that's really rewarding.
That's incredible.
So Watercolor Bot was this, it drew on flat things. That was its novel thing, but it did watercolor. That inspired Lindsay Wilson to create the first version of the AxiDraw, and Lindsay is in the UK, but also did not want to do production, and so asked us if we wanted to take the AxiDraw forward in production, get it out to people. So it's a long chain of mutual inspiration and collaboration that all of these products have come from, and we get a project and it's wonderful, but you have to make it so that people can use it, so that the instructions are good, so that the software is maintained and updated, and works.
This is underrated.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more about your process for that, because I feel like so many makers struggle to do that. Yeah, continue this thought, but I'd love to come back to that, because
seconding that. Let's come back to this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the end of the thought.
Cool.
Is that that we continue. We as the producers end up with a big responsibility both on the design front in making it usable and on the maintenance, the software, all of the other things, the tutorials, and I'll say we also rely on our communities a lot. They're incredible at sharing information with each other and tips and tools. So there's a couple of different, specifically for AxiDraw, the Drawing Bots Discord group is really great for all people who have pen plotters, not just AxiDraw, but they share tons of information. And then of the people who do art with pen plotters, there's a lot of them who do generative art, and there's a generative Discord that is not specific to pen plotters, although they do have a pen plotter channel, but it's all about generative art in a much broader sense.
Something which I'm genuinely very interested in, and trying to find the time.
Okay, so before we go back to software stuff, do you want to hear another little museum diversion?
Yes.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay, so we got to make a piece to go in the San Jose Museum of Art as an explanatory piece alongside a solo show for the artist Leo Villarreal. And Leo makes LED artworks that are often like at Burning Man or large-scale kinds of things that have generative components. And so the patterns of lights and things are generative. And they wanted a piece that would help people understand what does it mean for something to be an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you both know of Conway's Game of Life?
Oh, that rings a bell.
Wait. Okay. Maybe, yeah.
So this is an early computer game or idea that you have cells that have rules, and if there are enough cells near each other, they'll grow, and if you don't have enough, they'll die off. You have too many, they'll die off. So it's a very strict set of rules that dictate which pixels will be on or off.
Yes. It's clicked.
Right.
I know where I've seen this.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
It's a very commonly known algorithm, and it's fairly easy to explain. But if you have enough neighbors, you stay on. Or you turn on, and if you don't, you turn off. And so you can watch the behaviors depending on how many neighbors there are. So we set up one that you could turn on and off the individual pixels. It was small enough that there was only, I don't remember how many pixels it was, but you could watch. It was large enough that you could watch the behaviors, and it was all done with IR sensors, so there were no buttons, so there's nothing to wear out. Because in a museum, things wear out if you let people touch them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this was all basically touch free. So we built this piece to go alongside. To help people understand Leo's exhibition. And then after that was on display, we were asked by the Museum of the Future to make one for them for their exhibition on games. Because this is the game of life. It's not... It's one
like
of the earliest games. It's not what we think of as games, but they're challenging the definition of what is a game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really interesting exhibit that they put on about computer games and the history of gaming and so on. And
I would definitely consider it a game. There is a subset of games that is AI driven, but still has a human component, and I would absolutely argue that it is a type of game for sure.
Yeah. So when we talk about generative art and us being part of the generative art community, we've been part of that community for quite a while in a really different way, like from the electronics side rather than the tool side.
I never even thought about generative art being able to be done like in a manual sort of sense, like in a hard-coded kind of thing. It never even occurred to me till now. Like,
do you know about how to make a Sierpinski's triangle by rolling dice? You'll have to look that up later.
Oh, this is the coolest.
So there are fractals that you can make using dice.
That's bonkers. I've not seen this either.
Basically, it's about where do you put the next dot, and you roll the dice, and that tells you where to put the next dot, and eventually the dots fill in, and you end up with a fractal.
Is this?
That's cool.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to work it out in my head. I'll just watch the thing. This is so cool.
I think I've seen that the algorithm or the generative the Conway's Game of Life algorithm. I'm pretty certain I've actually seen that done in a format with tiny robots.
Cute.
And that was pretty cool, actually. That was at SeaGraph many years ago. And they had a bunch of little tiny robots. They were about maybe this big, and they could kind of vibrate, move, and they had a little LED screen on their top, and they would congregate and communicate an idea, basically. And I feel like this was might not be exactly the same, but it was similar, because an idea would die out if it didn't have a way to pass it on. So like you would end out, if you watched it long enough, which I totally did because I thought it was fascinating, you'd end out with eventually two groups of ideas, and you'd have like a blue circle and a red square kind of thing. And then they couldn't do anything else.
A friend of mine did a piece. This is Kip Bradford. He did helped with a piece for an event that was about transmission, and it was actually around disease transmission, and so everybody got a badge. And if you got close enough to someone and you were contagious, you could transmit to their badge. And at the end of the night, you could see how it. I think I've seen this. How people's behaviors had changed, and it was just such a cool project.
Wow,
that's
cool. That would be so good to be able to give to kids in a school, and then like to teach them about seeing us we're in unprecedented times.
Exactly.
And then watch it happen. Yeah, that's so cool. Yep. Oh, I love all these practical demonstrations of ideas that you just keep bringing up. Like, this is such an awesome way for people to learn, to like see and do. It's just the most natural way humans learn, to be able to experience something, and that you're bringing these kind of high level abstract concepts into the real is just, from a learning perspective, just awesome. I'm digging it so hard.
So I did my bachelor's degree in English and Greek. Technically, my degree is in interdisciplinary studies. And for the longest time, I thought, the most important thing that I learned in school was office work, because I had a really great office job. But it turns out that I'm really an interdisciplinarian. Mm-hmm. Like, I cross genres and connect things and do so many, mix-ups of things, mashups, that sometimes I have a perspective that helps people make a connection they wouldn't have otherwise made on their own. Mm-hmm. And that's probably like the most valuable tool that I have, is that ability to make a connection.
It makes me so happy to hear somebody say those words, those kind of that recognizing your own special skills and your value, and just being sure of it enough to just say it out loud on an interview to the world.
It's
is
awesome.
Like, yes.
And it's so obviously awesome. True. Like, you clearly know yourself.
Oh, yeah. Like, there's no denying it. Nobody would doubt you, for sure. But also, it is hard. I think it is hard for a lot of people to assert that this is a thing that I'm skilled at. This is a thing that actually I kind of kick ass at. And maybe it's a bit special. Even if it's true, it still can be really hard to say out loud. So, like, Huda?
Okay, so I went to this conference, and it's an exclusive hacker conference. It's called Hackers. And a friend of mine went with me. That's what it says on the tin. She's amazing. And at one point she said to me, isn't it amazing that we have access to all of these amazing people? And it rubbed me the wrong way, and I wasn't sure why for a really long time. And then I realized what it was. Isn't it amazing that those people have access to us? Like, they've been stuck in their ruts for 30 years or more. They need a refresh, and they need new connections, and so yeah. I love those people. They're great. I love the old hackers. They're fantastic.
But also, you're the new guard.
Well, honestly, I'm not. You are the new guard.
No. Well,
right. I mean, I haven't done 3D printing since 2009. I'm
sugar printer though. Like, that could be rekindled at any moment and be awesome.
Yeah, no, we're definitely over here doing the
candy fab.
Doing the oh god, what's the film?
Oh, it's
Bill and Ted.
Wayne's World. Oh no, I was gonna be We're Not Worthy.
Is it Bill and Ted or is it Wayne's World?
Wayne's World?
It's one of the two. Now I'm really
You're probably correct. I'm probably wrong, but yeah, amazing.
But yeah, with the We Are Not Worthy. It's Wayne's World. You're right. It's Wayne's World. But with the We Are Not Worthy, that's how I'm feeling right now. It's just like we are in the presence of greatness, and this is like, I pretty much also like taking notes. I
actually mean that in a transmissible fashion. That you are now the ones that are providing the value and being the new thing and making the new connections. That you also are the ones who are the joy to have in the conference. So you should know that.
Love hearts. Oh my god.
Not that we've been at a conference together.
No, we need to rectify this situation as soon as we can. As soon as we can. We will rectify this situation.
I feel like when it's finally able to happen again, like I feel like I'm not gonna see home for 3 months, which my cats will not approve of. But just feels like there's so much to get caught up on in regards to doing and seeing and
I'm one of those people. I'm one of those introverts that has to go back home and recharge before I can do another conference. So I'm pretty sure my conferences will still be limited.
Yeah, and to be fair,
I'm overwhelmed by we're out of pandemic thing that it'll be just overwhelming with that.
Oh yeah, I'm the same, but like it's cost so much money to get from Australia to anywhere that I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to find a way to relax along the way because I can't do multiple trains.
You just gotta go, do one of those one way round the world thing.
Yes.
So that you just go and then you go to conference and then you go and you take a break and then you go to a conference and you go and you take a break and eventually you'll make it back to Australia.
Yeah.
But you might be gone a while.
Yeah. Poor boyfriend.
If you do it that way. Maybe. Also wealthy benefactor might be necessary. For that.
I need a wealthy benefactor. Though I have a job now. That happened yesterday. That's exciting.
Congratulations on your new job. That's so exciting.
Yes,
not just a job.
Just starting this afternoon.
Job.
Yes, the job I wanted for years.
Job.
So I will have funding in the future. So that's exciting. Anyway, this isn't about me. Coming back to that notion of blending fields, where do you draw your inspiration from? And do you ever get blocks and how do you overcome them? I don't know, that kind of, yeah.
So, how am I going to answer
what's
this?
the creative process like overall?
When I'm telling someone, they say, how do I get started in blank? Mm-hmm. I always tell them, start with a project that has meaning or is interesting or useful to you. And so that has always been true for me, that if I'm doing something that I need or I want or that is a gift for a friend, that's usually a starting place for at least for my personal projects. For stuff for the business, it's a little bit different because there's so many different financial constraints and things and so little time. So it's
never enough time.
Really hard to decide on what is the next project and what's the next product because there's we just can't spread ourselves too thin. I mean, we're always spread too thin, and now we're especially spread very thin. And have been for the last year or so. But it's tough. So lately, my inspiration has been empty the freezer. My freezer's full of plums.
Totally legit.
So my freezer is full of plums because I have a plum tree. And last year had a really good crop. And so I've been gradually making more and more jam and different types and things like that. Like the oranges ripened recently, so I've been making orange plum jam instead of lemon plum jam, which is what I usually make because I have lemons all the time. California bonuses.
Lemons are pretty great.
It's pretty great.
You need to do a plum frangipane if you haven't done one yet.
Oh yeah, that would be good. That would be very good. I did a plum hazelnut coffee cake that worked well.
Have you ever had a pavlova?
Oh,
what's that?
Yeah, I like a good pavlova.
Oh, they're my favorite dessert.
Yeah.
And we totally stole it from New Zealand, but let's not talk about it.
That's okay.
We call it our own.
The UK then took it, broke it into pieces, and called it an eaten mess. So, it's just being stolen all over the place. Yeah, no, in case you didn't know that, an eaten mess is just a broken up pavlova, basically.
Oh, that's good for when I break.
And in case anyone doesn't know what a frangipane is either, it's actually like an almond kind of based. It's like an almond based cake, but it's a tart and it's delicious. And you'll just have to Google it if you don't know what a frangipane is. But it's really good, and I feel like plum frangipane would be
yeah.
And now you got me thinking of dessert.
So I've got like 2 gallons of plums left in the freezer. I did a batch of orange plum jam yesterday, so that's been my inspiration for like actually making something. It only takes a few hours to make a batch of jam, and
necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, then you have jam.
And then I give jam to my friends, and it's great. Yeah,
perfect.
And the cycle continues.
Yeah. Sorry, when you first said empty the freezer, I thought of it in a metaphorical sense, as in like empty the backlog of things, and then now I'm like, that's what I've been doing, because like I've been going through my fabric stash and trying to like actually use the fabric and like actually use my supplies, which is actually what you're doing with the plums anyway, but I went on this metaphorical tangent that actually also is the same thing, and I just had to share that moment.
But that's also such a good way to go about doing stuff, and it's also a thing that I've tried to do.
Yeah,
so we often keep a list of
metaphorical
projects
freezer
that is like the if we had time we could do this project, and that's the wish list, but sometime we'll have time and we can refer to that and do it someday, or maybe pull one out that's small enough bites that you can start on it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's beautiful.
Now, I know that we earmarked it, but I definitely want to come back to I think a lot of people watching this could probably benefit from hearing a bit about like kind of your process for documentation and like taking something that you've made and making it usable by everyone, being able to create good instructions and good documentation and being able to communicate to a vast group of people, here's how you use this thing correctly and also make it easy, that is truly, I think, one of the missing skills in this community. Like, no offense to everyone, obviously, and there are people who do it well, but it is often a forgotten step, I think, when people are making stuff for outside use as opposed to just personal use.
Yeah. So we started really before online video was so prevalent, and video production
wasn't that long ago.
We do it takes so much more time. We don't do very many video tutorials. Occasionally we will, if it's something that really benefits from demonstrating it actively. We do a lot of photography. We do really photo heavy documentation. We do really photo heavy documentation, like step by step.
Yeah,
that's great.
people are like, 65 pages? We're like, yes, 65 pages.
You will be glad that we took the time to create 65 pages. You're welcome.
So we have a lot of like PDFs, and we actually use a lot of wikis as well, or we have a wiki that we use for a lot of our documentation, and for like more like bonus information, or small kits that don't need a whole lot of explanation. Yeah, exactly. So, but for stuff that that needs it, that's what we do. A lot of photographs and a lot of step-by-step, very, very step-by-step, try and not skip. And the other thing is, we've been doing this long enough, we get a lot of feedback. And when we get a question over and over, it means our documentation is bad. But we haven't covered that step, and that we need to address that by changing our documentation. And so you do it enough and you can sort of anticipate what kind of questions you're going to get. But you also have to be able to admit when you miss something and update it as you go.
I think something like this benefits more from critique and feedback than almost anything else. Like, I know that I personally benefited so tremendously from the feedback I got from people I shared my first instruction guide with. Like, I 100% feel like if I hadn't gotten that feedback, it would have been garbage. It would have been hot garbage. So like, but like the feedback I got, it was just that, oh, I totally forgot about that thing. That thing didn't occur to me to be added in. Thank you for mentioning that. And like that sort of feedback, whether it is from actual users or beta testers, friends, what have you, is really useful.
The two of us have the ability to ask each other for help. So if Wenzel writes documentation for something, I usually read it, and vice versa. It's gotten harder for me to proof. I can't read as well as I used to because I know it too well.
Yeah.
And I don't have fresh eyes to look at it with. And so, yes, having other people read it will catch things that I won't. So you're absolutely right. Having fresh eyes, other eyes look at it is super important. Being willing to put it out there for people to share. And like, I've seen people doing this in some of the Discord groups, that they'll share it because they feel safe there, that there are people there that they feel comfortable sharing with, and which it's so wonderful to see that there are spaces where people feel comfortable sharing unfinished things. I love unfinished things. Oh yeah, so there's one
seeing
Maker
other
Fair
people's
where
unfinished things. Yeah,
I went around Maker Fair and took a picture of everything I saw that was broken and the person who was fixing it, and like I'm like, this is great. You're doing Maker Fair right. You are making something at Maker Fair, and because they look so like
ashamed.
Everything's not working. And you're like,
yeah, a little crestfallen.
You're doing it right. You're making it Maker Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
It was fun because they always, because every time I left, they were like, "Oh, you mean this is okay?" So it did like change their perspective a little bit. It was great.
Oh, I love the little
like the
social
angel
engineering
of making
things. Yeah, you got like little hints of social engineering in there, just like making it cuddly. I love it. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
You might just be like the fairy godmother of making. I think like you were spreading joy. You were making people feel better about themselves. You are also making incredible things that also make people feel good. You were just the fairy godmother. I'm sorry, but it's been decided. It's been decided.
I'm gonna put that in my Twitter bio.
Fairy godmother of making. Yes, love it.
Yes.
I
mean, gosh, you've earned it.
Yeah. Definitely. I was going to say, coming from a background in learning design, that's so true about having the fresh eyes kind of thing. And it's counterintuitive because you would think an expert would be the best person to write instructions. But if you've never done it before, that seems like a logical kind of thought plan. But it never is. Practically never, because it is so hard for an expert to, like you said, put themselves in the beginner's shoes and pretend they know nothing, because they do know so much, and it's so hard to forget stuff.
The hardest customer to support is someone who is an expert, because they have the hardest time reading the instructions. and it's
Gloss over
just
that bit and,
you're like, I have to tell you that you're a beginner here. That we have to talk about basics.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's why it's so important to have someone who can have those fresh eyes, and all the better if they understand how to write learning or have a history of making really good stuff, because really it helps a lot.
Improved accessibility too. That's I think a big one as well, because like it's very difficult to kind of be able to keep in mind all the various kind of ways in which something might be inaccessible to somebody. And so again, putting it in front of lots of people.
So one of the things I struggle with video is I would like to be able to offer more video, because it is a more common form now, and there are people who do not read well or do not get information well from text. And so I know that I'm missing people. It's just so much work.
The video is an incredible amount of work. Obviously, we understand this intimately.
Yeah, and I find it so hard, and also, like, if you're trying to make money from the video, balancing the pure how-to kind of here's the instructions with the entertainment side, which is like how it works on YouTube,
it's
which
hard.
is like they're really kind of in conflict with each other. Really hard. But I think with the making videos, I try to, like, I think the easiest way I've found, or I'm finding, is to make really, really short ones that's just this specific part, this specific tool in this software, and they're like a minute long, because then if you have to redo one, it's only that bit, and not like a 10-minute video where this at the 5-minute mark, this bit's wrong. Yeah, like.
So, you mentioned accessibility. We realized early on that our packaging is almost as important as the instructions, because much of what we do are soldering kits, and resistors are only identifiable by color codes, and if you are colorblind, you will not be able to tell the difference. And so you have to have
good thinking. I wouldn't have thought of that.
You have to have a way in your packaging of explaining which resistor to look for. And so, like, in one case, we use a smaller resistor because it doesn't matter if it's a 1/4 watt versus an 1/8 watt resistor. But you can say use the small one.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
And things like that. Or for another kit, there's like one of each of 10 different resistors, and we actually put them in a little wallet, like a needle wallet. You know how you can get needles that stick into a little matchbook kind of thing? Yeah. So the resistors are in there with a label, taping them down to say which type they are, because it's
big brain.
Different.
That's fantastic.
I'm now thinking about, I studied chemistry for 5 minutes. I didn't finish the degree, but I'm now thinking about how we were assessed on, because it wasn't just chemistry, it was like science, and then you branch. So the first ones were all really general, and we had an electronics part of it for physics, I think. And it's now occurring to me that there was definitely an assessment where we were assessed on identifying resistors, and how unfair that assessment was, because people are colorblind. What? Yeah. Like 10% of men, right? Like a lot of people, 5% of the population or something. Yeah. Wow. That was awful.
It's there are so many different areas of accessibility, and admittedly, like you were kind of saying about how you can't make videos for everything, and you're aware that not everyone can read well. It is almost impossible to be perfectly accessible for everyone, and so that, unfortunately, a lot of times there is, you can just do your best. It's honestly kind of it, because like
every time
funny.
I post a photo to Flickr, I try and put the image description, those kinds of things. It's like,
try to do your best. It's funny too, because like I know that on the flip side, a lot of people with certain types of kind of neurodiversity find videos difficult and much prefer written in color.
Me too.
Same with me.
Even though I make them, everyone asks me to make them, but I actually really find them frustrating to learn from.
A typed thing with photos. For me, that's perfect.
Me too.
And so,
I
can't win.
I cannot sit through videos.
Again, unless it's 5 minutes or less.
You find out about like grandma's cat before you find about how to do the thing that you actually want to do. Anyway, something I struggle with the YouTube situation.
Yeah. So you can't win them all, but it is. I do think that the key thing is when something does get identified, like the color blindness thing, you go, okay, we can fix it. We can adapt this, and that is again kind of going back to the why it's good to get lots of eyes on this sort of thing, because we can't hold all this information in our heads, including both how to make the instructions good, but also all the various ways that you can do a small thing to make it more accessible. You can't hold that all in your head. It's just too much. So you get other people to look at it, and then they go, by the way, this font is really difficult to read if you're dyslexic, and you go, oh, okay, thank you. I didn't realize that. I'll change the font, problem solved. But it was solved because somebody else took a look at it, and it's very easy to miss these things if you don't. So I definitely think that is a really useful thing with instruction.
I mean, it's useful.
Listening to feedback.
Many areas.
Yeah, so many things.
Yeah, no, that's true. No, that is absolutely true.
Listening and being open to feedback is just such a gross opportunity for anyone. Yeah.
So one of my day jobs back when I had day jobs, I was the graduate coordinator for mechanical engineering at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And so I would review all of the incoming applicants for the graduate program from the staff perspective, and then do admissions and then academic advice from the staff perspective. And so after that, years later, I'm now running the company. We're mentoring a robotics team, and all these high schoolers are applying to college. And I'm like, you need to have people look at your applications, all of your essays. And guess what? I'm an expert, and I'm your mentor. And
hand them over. Yeah, hand them over.
Very, very few would, because they're so scared. But the ones that did, you made it better.
They're gonna kick butt.
Higher chances.
Yeah, they're gonna kick butt now.
Yeah. Oh,
they will benefit.
So worth it.
For sure.
So worth it.
Oh man, this has been so absolutely just jam-packed with cool. I feel like I say this every time. We get such amazing people on this show. I feel like I say it every time. I'm like,
how do you do that? Are you amazing or something?
I know many amazing people.
Yes, you're amazing or something. I'm gonna go with amazing.
Okay, because you said so.
Okay, we will say thank you, and yes.
Thank you, Lenore. We've been very blessed by the just sheer range of incredible people we've had on here, and I feel like I say this every time, because every time I'm saying, and I'm just like, I have learned so many incredible things. I have been just I've had my socks blown off by the things that people accomplish and have done, and it just never ends. It's I feel like we haven't even peaked. I don't even know what peaking looks like. I think we're just plateaued at the peak. It's just this is just
constant
this
peak.
is just it, and it is just riding a high that never ends, and I've lost the rest of my words, but
awesome.
You're amazing, Lenore. You're amazing. Is this essentially?
Basically,
thank you so much.
That is
this
what
is
I'm
wonderful.
Saying. That is the short version.
Is there anything you want to chat about today? Is there anything you had in mind that you really wanted to talk about? Well.
Oh well, I wanted to talk about the sewing because that was so fun.
Yes, so good.
And someday I'll get back to sewing. I have pockets I need to expand and things like that, but I think I'm gonna have to wait until I have a few more spoons from the pandemic stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, man,
self-care,
what's it gonna be like?
Primary importance
to not have that way. I mean, it's are we all suddenly gonna be ultra productive and be like, whoa, look at all the stuff I can do when I don't have this thing weighing on me? I mean, maybe not,
hope
but.
So. It's been a hard year because I haven't felt like I've had the energy to do any of my own personal creative stuff other than a little bit of jam every now and then.
And that's totally understandable.
I think a lot of people
I haven't even gotten the sewing machine out. So I've got projects that are building up in my brain for when I've got the spoons for it. So I'm looking forward to that.
That'll be awesome. I can't wait to see what you do next because, wow, you'd make amazing things.
Yeah.
So, where can people find you and follow? Where can they see these things in future?
They need to.
Yeah.
They need to follow.
If they're not already, I mean, you already have such a huge following, but
absolutely.
Right, so the company stuff, our blog is evilmadscientist.com, and our Twitter is EMSL, and we've got an Instagram and a Facebook, but they all kind of, show the same stuff, so you choose your flavor platform.
Yeah.
And then on Twitter, I'm one Lenore, and that's where I hang out the most, other than little Discord groups that are full of awesomeness.
Discord's great. Like, I think it has that right balance between personalness and also a little bit of anonymity, so people feel quite good to be themselves. And
I am getting on board with it.
Good communities.
I'm slow to get to it, but I'm definitely won over.
I joined Discord at the very beginning of the pandemic, at the time of the Open Hardware Summit, which I was supposed to be speaking at. Well, I mean, I did speak at. I was on a panel, I didn't go to.
Yeah.
That was that first major cancellation? I think that was first major cancellation because it was supposed to be like first weekend in March, and they set up a Discord, and I was really active in it, and it was event specific, so it was kind of time limited. Although it's still active, and I think they'll be active on it again when the next event happens. But I found that the platform itself was really easy to work with, and I like that. Now, Evil Mad Scientist has a Discord primarily for product support, and then, I've joined some others that are just, they feel like home. There's...
Like, you might be in another one as of today.
I didn't see that. Yeah.
And I think another one as of yesterday or a couple of days ago.
I just joined a couple of cool new ones.
Yeah, so we will drop links to those in the description.
That number may have multiplied overnight or over the day. Yeah. It is a really interesting tool, and it is a tool that, admittedly, I still feel like I'm kind of learning my way around, and it continues to impress me. So, like, I definitely see what you're getting at, for sure.
Yeah, they definitely embraced the opportunity to help build communities at a time when it's hard to build communities.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yes, everyone should follow if they aren't already, because you are impressive as hell and just doing really amazing stuff. And again, I know I said it before, but like important stuff, like not to diminish what other people are doing or anything like that, but you are definitely doing stuff that I feel like has a value that is hard to measure.
I love being a tool maker. It's amazing. It's a great feeling to see people doing stuff with your stuff.
Yeah. I think I remember on one of Matt Stiltz's calls, you came and showed off AxiDraw and all sorts of other awesome things, and you were showing up all the little pictures that people had made on your machines, which is just, that must be so rewarding, that getting postcards from people.
They send them to us. They send us art. We actually are going to join into one of the AxiDraw Plotter Twitter postcard exchanges, and which means we'll have to make art for our AxiDraw.
I love it. I
follow an amazing artist on Instagram who exclusively uses AxiDraw to create art. I want to say her name's Chandra, but I feel really bad that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Chandra.
Is it Chandra? Yeah. Like, it's exclusively generative. It's getting late here. Getting late here. I'm losing my words. Yeah, exclusively generated art, and it's beautiful.
I owe her a artist profile on the blog. One of the things that I did for a while was do artist profiles of people who are using AxiDraw.
Nice.
And I love doing that, and I just haven't had the energy to do it lately. So
she's
on my list. She's amazing.
She's actually really lovely. I've spoken with her. I think she was the first person my first time experience, like, seeing the AxiDraw. So, like, it was her, I think, who kind of got me going, oh, what's this thing?
She's great.
She's nice.
On the postcard exchanges, people who don't have an AxiDraw can sometimes sign up some of the AxiDraw owners will volunteer to do extras, like without getting one in return. So watch the hashtag plotter Twitter, because sometimes when they do these exchanges, there'll be opportunities for people to like sign up and say, I would love one. So,
That's cool.
I'll definitely be doing that. That's awesome. I do check out Plotter Twitter every now and again. That hashtag is just always full of gems. And like, yeah, every now and again I'm just like, Plotter Twitter when I need, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, I need a Plotter. It's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen now that I have a job, because I first sort of started seeing it when I didn't have work, and now I'm like, oh, I'll have so much money, so much more room for activities.
I will have room to breathe.
Yeah.
And to do things. Yeah.
And new things. So I'm very excited. I think it'll happen imminently. You'll see an order very shortly. And there will be things. And the generative art side is really interesting to me too, because I've just started doing a little bit of that in video editing. Like I've been making some like splash screens and stuff, and it's kind of generative in that you grab these filters and you edit, you put different inputs in and it does different stuff. And I don't know whether it's generative, but it's kind of starting that vibe. And
it's
I really,
algorithmic for sure.
Yeah. And and I really enjoy that. So I think there'll be more of that in my future too, because it's so exciting. They're beautiful. Like, thank you for enabling such cool stuff to happen, and for doing such cool stuff yourself. You're a legend, and yes, just fangirling.
And for being here, and for coming on and sharing all this with us and everyone.
So much for having me. This has been so much fun.
For me too. I wish they could go forever sometimes. Yeah.
It is such an absolute joy, and we're very, very lucky. This is like one of those, like, we chose well for ourselves this thing that we're doing, because we benefit from it immensely. So.
Yeah, definitely. This keeps me going.
It's like, oh yeah, this isn't altruistic at all. We're having a hell of a good time.
Oh. Well, I love that you share the conversations, because then we all get to hear them afterwards and participate vicariously in your fun.
Absolutely.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. And yes, we'll pop all the socials in the description, and we'll see you on the internet.
Yeah. Until next time.
Bye.
I am loving making this series, and if you are too, please support me on Patreon so I can keep making more. Top supporters will appear in this list of legends. You can meet another maker here, and here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like. If you want to catch up with any of us, all our socials are in the description below. See you later!